Welcome everyone to For the Love of Emails videocast for this holiday season 2021. I'm Tejas Pitkar, Senior Product Evangelist at Netco Cloud. Today we'll be talking with a reputed email thought leader, Gene Jennings, General Manager at Only Influencers and CEO of Email Optimization Shop. Welcome to the videocast, Gene. It's great to have
Thanks,
you.
Tejas. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So, just talking about the upcoming holiday season, what are some of the lessons that you think marketers have learned from, the holiday campaigns of 2020?
Yeah, I think the learnings that we got last year really varied based on what industry you were in. Some industries that were hit hard from the pandemic wasn't such a great holiday season for them. Other industries fared just fine. The thing that I learned working with my clients last holiday season was that good email marketing still works if you're in an industry that wasn't negatively impacted by the pandemic. Things like segmentation, targeting, smart design. I would say the two areas that my clients made adjustments based on COVID were making it easier for people to do online ordering because that was much bigger rather than brick and mortar. Also, and I saw this especially with one of my clients, I thought it was brilliant. They made it very, very easy to have gifts shipped directly to the recipient. So the idea of not necessarily the person who bought it, but the person or the people who are receiving it. One of my clients specializes in corporate and gifts. So they have people that will buy hundreds or thousands of something and deliver it to customers or employees. In the past, employee distribution has been relatively easy because it's just given out in the office with everyone at home. They actually pivoted rather nicely and had direct delivery to people's homes, even for employees. And I think that was really key. So the idea of thinking through things that are struggle. But yeah, we saw a lot of success last year. But again, the idea of good email marketing paired with small pivots to adjust for COVID.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think many businesses had to pivot with the pandemic, make the necessary adjustments. Uh, Going to this season, this upcoming year, do you think this holiday season is going to be any different than last year, or is it going to be the same?
I think this holiday season is going to be a lot like last holiday season. I think that we still aren't completely back in our offices as far as work goes. Um, I think that, here in Washington, D.C., we're still pandemic. We're back to having a mask mandate if you're indoors, people are still being very cautious. So I think it's going to be much more similar to 2020 than perhaps to 2019 or 2018. Still a focus on online ordering, a focus on shipping directly to recipients. And again, that focus on making sure that you're doing really good email marketing.
Yeah. Now, according to research by Adobe, half of last year's e-commerce revenue share actually came from mobile devices. So, do you have any suggestions for marketers in order to optimize their email content for mobile devices?
Yeah, I saw that study from Adobe and I thought it was fascinating. I'm not sure how much the pandemic contributed to that. I have a feeling it would have been highly mobile even without that, just because I don't know about you, but my phone is my life. Um, so yeah, so I think we need to really focus on that. I mean, I think the first thing to do is really to look at your audience and see what percentage of them are opening your emails on mobile devices. For most people, it's going to be pretty high.
Right.
Years and years ago, probably 10 or 12 years ago, I did work with the National Association of Realtors, and they had a very high mobile open rate. Think about it. People who are selling houses are constantly in their car, they're working. So I actually got kind of an early introduction to focusing on mobile. But there are some important things to do. I mean, you want to make sure that your messages are more concise, because as long as it is on a big screen, it's going to be probably twice or three times as long on a small screen.
Yeah.
You also want to think about that goes to the length of the message in general, but also to the length of each paragraph. My rule for years has been when you're writing for online, no paragraph should be more than 5.25 lines.
Okay.
And that means not sentences, but lines. So if you apply that to mobile, that makes for much shorter sentences. I actually work with clients, and when we're writing from mobile, we sometimes have paragraphs that are a single sentence. Each sentence gets its own paragraph to make sure it's not going to be too long on mobile. The other thing that's really important on mobile, big buttons, because we have big fingers. And so you want to make sure that it's easy enough to click on it. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to click on an email and maybe it's a text link or it's a small button and you can't get it because your finger's so big and it's so small. And so you really want to think about that as well. You really want to, it's great. I worked with a copywriter, Pat Friesen, years ago, who is brilliant. She's retired now, but she used to say, I want to put myself in the place of the person reading the email when I write it, so I can imagine what they're going to experience. And so whenever you're working on email now, I always try to think about if I'm that person at the grocery store reading it on my phone. If I'm that person, at my lunch hour reading it on my phone, how is this going to play? And that's, I think, really critical to mobile, is just focusing on the mobile experience and really thinking about it.
Right. Yeah. Those are some great tips. So, what will be your one suggestion to marketers if they want to change something in the email programs this year, which they probably didn't do the last year? Without giving any secrets of yours, what will you suggest?
I'm happy to share what works for me. That's how we all grow and expand this industry. My tip for holiday would be, and this is going to go a bit against the conventional wisdom, so bear with me. Add in A/B split testing. I was taught coming up through the ranks, and I did online first before I learned offline direct mail, but then I went back and now I do only online. The word was you never test during your key season. You always get all your ducks in a row and then you just roll out. I got to tell you, last year, because of COVID, we did extensive testing with one of my clients because we just weren't sure at the beginning of the season. That ended up being one of the best parts of the program and one of the things that allowed us to accelerate revenue the way that we did. The key there is to follow scientific method. You always want to have a hypothesis and a reason why you believe what you're testing is going to improve results. The second key is to do tests on elements that are going to be consistent throughout the holiday campaign. So for instance, things like the wireframe layout of your emails, things like the number of products you're going to feature. We got some fascinating results when we started testing number of products last year. There is a sweet spot. And the key is to find out what that sweet spot range is, because if you do fewer products, you're going to bring in less money. And we also found that if we did more products, we either bring in the same or less money. So there's this sweet spot of number of products that you definitely want to get to if you're doing multi-product emails. The other thing that you can test in this way, again, elements that are consistent throughout the campaign, subject line formulas. So figuring out how to express subject lines. Obviously, the first 25 characters of a subject line are most important. You want to have the key messages in there, but figure out how to position things, how to say things. Is it $1 off or a % off? How do you leverage that? Also, how does the subject line interplay with the pre-header text, which again can have dramatic results? So I would just say A/B split testing. We planned with my client last year. We started mailing holiday in September. The original plan was to test through the end of October and then stop A/B split testing in November and the first half of December. The A/B split testing went so well in September and October, and far away, most of the things we tested boosted revenue, that we continued testing all the way until the end, because it just didn't make sense. We kept having more ideas. Everything we learned led us to something else. And so we actually tested throughout the campaign. I guess we probably we probably stopped testing after Black Friday. But even on our Black Friday campaign, we did one test at the beginning, and then we leveraged the winnings of that throughout the rest of the campaign, which was another probably 4 or 5 emails.
Right. That's a great tip. Continue A/B testing during this season as well. That's great. I hope marketers listening to this one can take that takeaway from this. So,
I think
if
people are
you
always afraid that they'll go in the wrong direction with testing, but as long as you're using scientific method and you're leveraging a business metric as your KPI, business metric being revenue per email, which is my favorite, revenue generated per email, or conversion rate, you're going to be okay. Go
I think
ahead,
with the
Sarah.
Apple changes now, you're definitely going to look at those other metrics in order to see what's a deeper relationship with your customers rather than just opens, which are going to be obsolete now. So yeah, that's a
Exactly.
great point. Great point.
Exactly.
So if you have to condense, uh, of what you have worked with a lot of brands in order to streamline their email programs and their performance in terms of results, can you discuss one holiday season campaign that got you major results? Probably in the last year, or maybe I've already started doing them this year.
Sure. So yeah, so I view holiday as one long campaign. And you may have, you have different sort of phases of it. So for instance, Black Friday is one phase, but I really view holiday as one long campaign. And so last year with my key client for last year, B2B client specializing trade show swag and corporate gifts for employees and clients, we actually got a 64% increase in revenue year over year from 2020, which is pretty amazing. We were really worried in a pandemic year, were people going to spend money? Were they going to spend money on things like this? There, I'd say we had two keys to success. One being the A/B split testing that we just talked about.
Yeah.
We got average lifts in revenue per email from our tests of 178%. So that's nearly tripling the revenue on average. Our median lift from A/B split testing was 41%. Both really important. The other thing we did that I think is really interesting that I haven't really seen a lot of people do, not the way I do them, are strategic resends. So very important. For a strategic resend, you identify the people who clicked on, let's say we send an email today. We identify the people who clicked on it, but who did not convert. They didn't end up buying. And
Right.
then you resend that same creative to them within a 1 week period. So with my client last year, I think our initial sends for holiday were Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then the following week on Wednesday and Friday, we would do a strategic resend to just the people who clicked but didn't convert for each of those campaigns. Our average lift in revenue per email was 1,380%.
Wow.
A lot. The median lift in revenue per email, 954%. So don't get me wrong, these are small sends, small group of people, but dramatic results. And it's beautiful because it's low risk. These people don't unsubscribe, they don't submit spam complaints. Low effort because you're resending exactly the same creative. High return. So it's almost a way to get, it's almost the icing on the cake, the way to squeeze a little more revenue out of that campaign. So that's the other thing that I would recommend. But the last thing I would say about it, and I think this is where I see a lot of companies kind of miss the boat. You want to be constantly looking at what's working and you want to leverage it. So when I worked with that client last year, the first thing I did was look at the 2019 campaign and figure out which efforts did better and worse. We took the top performing efforts, focusing on like the top quartile. We repurposed them almost exactly the same for 2020 and then built on that. Anything we had, so for instance, we did an all category email that worked very well. So we actually mailed that probably at least once a month, if not twice a month last year. So that's the other thing we did. We put new products in, but it was the same the same basic layout, the same copy, the same idea. So I think that's another thing a lot of people don't do enough of is just repurposing what's already working for them in a smart way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, most of the marketeers may not be thinking about sending the same campaign again, but send to a very targeted audience, as you said, gives you amazing results. So that's something that marketers can take away from this conversation as well. Amazing. Thanks so much,
Definitely.
Jean, for joining us in this podcast. There's some really great email insights. Uh, to the listeners, we'll see you again with some more actionable email tips and strategies to maximize your email results. This is Tejas from Netco Cloud signing off. Thanks, Jean.
Thanks, Tejas. Take care, everyone. Be safe. Stay well.